on this computer. There we go. Share screen. Okay. Okay, so Josh, with the internship, it's obviously a marketing internship, and that's our focus. It's also, at least my heart is, it also doubles in a discipleship fashion. We want to strengthen your faith, but I want to give you the best tools I can find to do better in life, not just marketing. We want to do better for ministries, but we can do better for ministries because we know how to do better for ourselves. And there are two parts to that. Okay, so the first part is what am I saying? Let me gather my thoughts here. Okay, so there are two parts to growth in the Bible, okay? And it's something we do with God, okay? So the people who are growing by themselves, which I have been guilty of personally, and they're doing it themselves, they're not doing it with God. And that does not have value from a kingdom perspective because God wasn't in it with you. The people who are not doing any of the building and they're going full miracles, and they're just like, the Lord will provide, and they just expect a miracle for everything, which is very common in the church. God will provide the growth. Well, that's true, but he provides the growth based on your action, right? Because you have shown that you have the character to consistently attempt the thing, and then at some point he provides growth out of your action because it's a partnership. There's a partnership. And so to that end, how does that work most effectively? And these are the kinds of things that I want to give you for ministries, for your church, for so you can benefit the kingdom, but also for your own life, because this is also true with family and relationship and everything else. My mentor, Daniel, I came up with all this stuff after reading 100 books, and that's what I do. I sit around and I say, what are the problems ministries have, and how do we make it more effective? How does the world work? And that's what I try to find in books. Well, Daniel, as a second confirmation of this, he goes, listen, I do as well as I do. And he's obviously very well off. And he's got a wonderful family, 7 kids. And he goes, look, I do as well as I do because I do 2 things. I inspect fruit. I'm a fruit inspector. I see which strategies get the best fruit. And then I make sure that strategy is in line with the Bible. And if it is, and it's better than the strategy I'm using, I just do that. And that is what we want to do. Okay. And so that one of the strategies that this is the basis of all of his decision making is this. And very interesting that this is who God puts in my path, because I made this before I met him. To that end, seeing it lived out in someone's life, really cool. Okay, so God calls Moses. Moses says, Pharaoh, let my people go. Am I quoting that correctly? Yeah. Okay, I'm always getting the names mixed up. All right, Moses, he calls Moses. He's in the burning bush. He says, all right, Moses, here's the vision. You're going to go over to Pharaoh and you're going to tell him to let my people go. And then I'm going to give you a land flowing with milk and honey. That's the order in the story. Okay. So is that really the whole story? Absolutely not. God skipped a whole bunch of stuff in there. He did not tell Moses all of the ways that he would almost certainly die in the process. He just said, here's the first step. Here's what's going to happen. Okay. So first step for Moses, and we'll get rid of this. First step is Pharaoh, let my people go. There you go. Go talk to Pharaoh, and I'll take you to a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay. So let's talk about, let me think about this. In order to get good fruit in ministry or in our lives, we have to understand the nature of reality correctly. Okay. So for example, something that does not get good fruit because it is based on a false understanding of reality is Marxism or postmodernism or communism, because it teaches the belief that you can believe whatever you want, that you can take away people's freedom, or even more specifically, there's a system of power at the top and you can go from the bottom and overthrow it because the top is evil and the top is some kind of patriarchal hierarchy that's evil. The problem with that system is that it doesn't align with reality, because as soon as the people at the bottom, which in Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto philosophy, once the proletariat at the bottom, the poor people, overthrow the rich people, the bourgeoisie, now they're the rich people. And what has to happen? It has to happen again. And so that is a great way to create perpetual chaos in a society and make everybody poor, right? And the Communist Manifesto is specifically referencing financial. I know in our modern world, we've got all kinds of crazy stuff that we throw in there, but that's Marxism. And that doesn't work because it doesn't function in reality. What it really creates is chaos and mayhem and anarchy, and nothing can work. It's just perpetual civil war inside of society, and it leads to societal decline. Okay, so to that end, how does the world work? Okay, so firstly, the world is fallen. It's a fallen place. It's not perfect. And what that means is that the good things are the hard things. And that is a general truth in almost every situation. Okay. So for example, in many situations, doing the right thing is the hard thing. And I would maybe even say in most situations. Why? Because at one point in time, doing the right thing was the easy thing. When God gave us these perfect characters that were totally sinless, right? Adam and Eve, they had the choice to not sin, and they, at that point, probably didn't see it as a particular struggle because they never really experienced it and they were just doing what God said. But once the nature fell, we no longer have this type of character, this type of nature where the hard things are normal. And for example, it says they were to tend to the garden. Well, nature wasn't broken, and they were just in perfect character. They were like Christ before the fall. So what are they doing? Diligently, disciplinedly, they're going through the garden. They're pruning, they're fixing. Is it hard for them? No, it's not hard for them. They have perfect character. They're loving the work. I love the work that I do. Is it hard? Yeah, but I love it because over time, at least in regard to work, I'm working on other areas of my life, but I've developed the character to do it consistently and do these calls, and it's easy and it's fun and I love it. Other people cannot get results in marketing because they can't do it this much. And we've had people who we've worked with who just cannot be consistent enough to make it happen. And it feels like a chore. And that is a response, that is a result of character, right? So to that end, hard things are the good things. And that's what the Bible says. When you come to know Jesus, you're basically going to suffer. Life's going to be tough because you're going to get persecuted. And yep, God's going to bless you for it. But you're going to die to your flesh. You're going to die to yourself. If you're a husband, you're going to die to your wife. When you accept Jesus, you're promised death and suffering. And that is the truth of the gospel. And so to that end, if we're asking our audience to do something worthwhile, it is going to be hard because all good things come from God, and humans by nature are not good. We're fallen. And that means it is hard to get good things. If I want to get buff, that's hard, right? That's a lot of working out, and that doesn't sound fun. If I want to have a fruitful garden, as I have found out, there are 9 million bugs that want to eat everything before I can. And that's going to be hard. If I want to raise kids that love Jesus, it turns out they're terrible creatures and they want to do everything except love Jesus. And so that's going to be hard. So anything worth doing is hard. And that includes getting an audience to a vision. Okay, so when we look at vision, we have to say, is it worth it? Okay, so for example, if I have 2 weeks of vacation, which I don't because I'm an entrepreneur, and that doesn't come with the territory, because entrepreneurship is hard. But to that end, if I had 2 weeks of vacation, and let's say I lived in Florida, and I talked to my wife, Somi, and I'm like, sweetheart, we need to take a vacation. We really need to have some quality time. It needs to be, really special. But that means we're going to have to get better at budgeting because, it's 6 months till vacation and we don't have any money away for it. And we're not going to go in debt. Okay, great. What are we going to do? We're going to go to Georgia, up to Granny's house in the trailer park. And we're going to, hang out with grandma and hang out in Podunk, Georgia. That could be the cheapest vacation ever, and we're never going to save enough money to do it because we do not care. That's a terrible vacation, you know? But if I said, we're going to go to the Mediterranean and we're going to go on a 1-month mission trip, and we need to put away $15,000 and we need to do all this stuff, and it's basically impossible, we will make that happen because it's worth it. I would run through walls to make something powerful and impossible happen. I won't even get out of bed. I won't even budget once a month to go to, you know, wherever in Georgia from Florida. Like, who cares? You see what I'm saying? The vision has to be more than worth the suffering. And that is why we suffer for Christ, because he promises us an eternity in heaven, in perfect relationship with God, and with some type of reward, presumably, as well, if we're willing to suffer here and die to ourselves. And that's why it works. And so when we create visions for businesses or clients or ministries, the vision has to be super clear and super worth it. And if people are not taking action in the ministry, it's because they don't want to sacrifice, right? And a lot of times in ministries, kind of going into that a little bit, a lot of times in ministries, why can't we get people to show up to church, right? Why can't we get them to show up? We have the coffee, we have the kids' jungle gym, we've got, you know, I don't know, a workout facility, and we've got the best speaker, Joyce Myers, is there every week, and we've got this amphitheater, and, you know, the Navy SEALs fly over and do backflips into the stadium. You know, like, we have everything. Why won't they just come to church and be Christians? Because in order to be a Christian, right, all of the good things, we're called to only good things in the Bible, you have to suffer. And the church broadly is basically saying there's no suffering required. You show up and you're going to have a great time, but that runs counter to the Bible. The Bible says suffering is required. So we're saying, hey, super easy, show up at church and you're going to get a foot massage, and, you know, someone's going to deliver a coffee to your seat. And what happens is then we read the Bible, and the Bible says, oh, your next step, yeah, that's hard. Well, they didn't sign up for hard when they came in. So we get a bunch of lukewarm Christians who aren't willing to do anything, right? And that doesn't work, unfortunately. And what does work is this, like Destiny, I don't know if you remember, first couple of weeks of the life skills class that we did, I don't even know, years ago at this point, right? We started. And the first couple of weeks we did games, right? Because that's what they teach you in youth ministry school. And I was just kind of going with my training. I'm like, all right, we'll do some games. We'll get them. Okay, so we did games and we goofed around and we played some, I don't know, whatever we played. And then, like, the goal, Josh, of the class was an apologetics class. It's like, we're going to get into philosophy and logic and teach you how to defend your faith. We're going to learn about atheism and Buddhism and Hinduism. Like, this is some deep stuff. Well, for the first 3 weeks, it's like, I'm doing what I'm telling you doesn't work. Like, oh, we're just going to have fun. We're going to, we're going to play games and snacks. And I got coffees and party. And well, what happened is nobody would listen to the lecture because they're just anticipating fun, right? And so after week 3, I realized what I did when I was in youth ministry that worked was I basically just said, you know, if you're not here to be serious, then don't come, you know, like, which is totally contrarian. That is not what most youth pastors do. But anyway, so to that end, I said, all right, guys, listen, we had a great start, you know, care about you guys. And from this point forward, the class is going to be about learning how to defend our faith. And we're going to talk about really hard subjects. We're going to talk about stuff you've never talked about in your whole, you know, 15 years at Christian school, because they have, most of them go to a Christian school there. And we're going to get into some heavy stuff, but it's serious. And if you don't want to learn and you don't want to be serious and you don't want to sit here and basically listen to a lecture on a whiteboard, which is what it was every week, don't come. If you want to come and you want to get answers to hard questions and you want to learn about business and you want to learn about investing and you want to learn about your faith and you want to learn about other faiths and you want to talk about transgenderism and all this stuff, come and sit down and ask smart questions, or at least genuine questions, you know? And I think only one person, there was like maybe 10 of us max. I think only one really wasn't interested, but the rest of them came. And some people actually, like Christina Destiny, started coming from out of their way. They were going to different churches and started coming. Because what happened was there was a vision that was greater than the sacrifice. And the sacrifice was, well, we got to listen to this nerd talk and write stuff and draw weird pictures and diagrams like I do for you guys on a whiteboard. And we don't really like that. However, we get answers to questions that nobody will address in church because we're afraid to touch it, right? And they showed up anyway. And not only did they show up anyway, they were challenged and they grew from that. And I mean, here Destiny is, and she's the business manager, and what happens is when you set the expectation that basically this is going to stink. And if you don't want suffering, don't show up. People who show up want suffering. And that means they're willing to grow. They're willing to do the hard things that get the good results. And when that happens, you can actually go toward a vision, but the vision has to be worth the suffering. Otherwise it's ridiculous. So I wouldn't do that, So to that end, what would function in church is if we gave a very powerful and specific vision. We're a missions church. We're a homeless church. But we are reaching homeless people. We're reaching local Hawaiians, whatever it is, the leaders of the church feel God is calling them to do. If they really focused in on it and said, here's the exact vision that we're going to accomplish. Yeah, it's Mount Everest and the hike is going to be arduous and treacherous, but we're going to do it together because this is the vision God has for your life and for our lives and for the church. People would absolutely do it, guaranteed. And I mean, Josh, you're doing that in this, right? Because what's the pitch on the internship? I'm going to do everything I can do to prepare you for a career in marketing, even if you don't have any experience, and you can track your hours. Any results you get while you're here, you can use. If you do well, I'll give you a great recommendation if I can't hire you myself. And I would love to hire you myself because you do great. And I don't know who that is. And I trained you, so I know you're good. Right? That's the pitch. And so what do? You show up and you write blogs for free, right? Churches can't even get people to volunteer during church, right? Because there's no vision attached to it. It's just like, well, I don't know, we're busy and we don't want to take out the trash, so you take out the trash. That doesn't work. But somehow, Josh, you'll show up here, and so did Destiny, and you'll listen to me talk and do a bunch of work that you don't even get paid for, which is ridiculous. Because why? Because there's actually a big win on the back end for you, and even now, you're learning, and that works. So people will suffer if the vision is powerful enough. I hope I didn't harp on that too long, but it's such a powerful idea that ministry leaders do not understand in any way whatsoever. And I'm not even exaggerating. When I tell ministry leaders that I have interns that work for free for over 500 hours in internship and build ClickMill and build this other site, and in addition to that, stay longer, unpaid in some cases, like Michael, who, thank goodness, we got him hired, willingly and excitingly stay longer because they feel it's rewarding. And I tell them that's a possibility. They think I'm speaking a different language. They don't understand, right? And this is how the Bible says to do this. This is why I set it up the way I set it up. And this is, so I'm giving you the strategy behind something that functions well in the world. Okay, so God says milk and honey. That's the vision for Moses. Well, why milk and honey? Well, they're enslaved in a desert by a terrible king, and he says you're going to have your own land that's full of milk, which means fat, delicious animals. And milk is a very rich, right? You grow, that's high in nutrients, and honey is candy, right? You're going to go to the land of, sugar and just delicious foods, candy canes and gumdrops. Like that's where you're going, and it's yours and you can do whatever you want. And they're like, Moses is like, I can get on board with that. That is sufficient to go and talk to Pharaoh. So yeah, I'll probably die. And he makes some excuses and he's like, all right, well, your brother can go with you and he can talk. He a little whiner. No, we're all whiners. But he's like, okay, I can do that. That is sufficient. So he goes, he takes step one. He goes, wanders across the desert, goes, talks to Moses, talks to Pharaoh, and then goes back 10 times for each plague, right? Does that. So Pharaoh finally says, all right, fine, take them. And then what is step two? We'll just call this one, right, like the Red Sea. I always forget if it's the Red Sea or the Dead Sea. So Moses says, all right, I'm willing to possibly die for the land of milk and honey and to save all my people. Then he's running away from the army that is behind him to kill him, and he's stuck up against the Red Sea. And again, all of this, the answer to all of these steps is faith, right? And that's not always the case, but in the biblical story, this one, it is. So God says, have faith that I'm going to provide with Pharaoh. And he says, okay, I'll do that. And the end is sufficient to justify that amount of risk. Okay, you're stuck at the Red Sea. That army's coming in behind you. Have faith that I'm going to provide a way out. And he did, and God provided a way out. Okay, then the next one here is the wilderness, right? So they're in the wilderness and they're, all the people are worried that they're all going to die and starve and be thirsty and all this stuff. And they're wailing and moaning. And God says, okay, well, Moses, have faith that I'm going to provide for this. They did not have faith. God got angry and provided anyway. And so he provides in the wilderness. So that's another step where it's like, hey, suffering, turmoil to get to this super awesome other thing. So super awesome vision. So they get through the wilderness and then it's go fight the giants and take over the land. And you'll probably definitely die there. And the spies come back and what do? They say, yep, we're definitely going to die. We got to get out of here. This is terrible. This plan doesn't make any sense. And God curses them to walk, 40 years in the wilderness until someone more faithful comes in. Then they do fight the giants and the land, Canaanites and all the people. And they win because God is with them. And then they get the land of milk and honey. So this is a 4-step strategy. God already knew all of this in advance. Obviously, he knows everything. But he only revealed each step as it's relevant, okay? Because presumably Moses could barely handle talking to Pharaoh, and he's not going to handle like, yep, you're going to get all the way there. Those people are going to get in there. You're going to go through the Red Sea death, probably the wilderness, probably going to die there. You're probably going to die with the giants. And also you are going to die because I'm not going to let you in anyway, but your people will get in. He's not going to sign up for that. There's no way. So God gives him the first step of the plan and the vision. And he goes, that's enough. And he does it. And then he reveals the second step of the vision, the Red Sea. Okay, well, here you are. Time to have more faith. And he continues to increase the suffering as they continue through the journey. And the suffering increases with their ability. As they get through another thing and another thing, their character is such that they're capable of embracing new suffering, more suffering. And that's also the case with the disciples. Right? Jesus starts and he gives small calls to action. Follow me. Well, all right, I got to leave everything. I mean, that's kind of, all right, I guess I'll leave everything. All right, well, we've been training for, a year. And now I want you to go over there to those towns and villages and don't take anything with you. No purses, no money sacks, no, trench coats and sandals, whatever it is they were carrying. Don't take any of that stuff. Go by yourself and just have faith that, I'm going to work it out. And well, that's crazy. That's harder than following you. Now you're telling us to go wander around alone with nothing. All right. So they do that. And then what happens later? We'll be prepared to die because that's the next step of suffering. And again, all of it is bringing God's kingdom. The vision, at least for Christ, is to bring God's kingdom to the Jews first and then the Gentiles. Sorry, give me one moment. Hello? I didn't. Oh, yes. Give me one moment. Bye. Guys, sorry. Give me 2 seconds. I just got to unlock the door real quick. I apologize. My father's in town and he's hanging out all day, every day, which is great. That's a great thing. Okay, so to that end, anything good worth getting to requires suffering. Anything that does not require suffering, like let's say postmodern ideology, which is you just make up whatever reality you want, believe whatever religion you want, and engage in whatever type of relationships you want, and you'll be happy. That does not work, and that does not bear out psychologically in any data that I have ever heard or read myself. That's crazy. It doesn't work. So if it's easy, you're not going to be happy. If it's hard, you're going to suffer and you're going to die to yourself and you're going to be really satisfied. And so this is the strategy. So when we work with ministries or any business or client, what we want to do is we want to first say, what's your vision? And they're going to go, what's a vision? They have no idea. And you're going to say, all right, the vision is where you feel God is calling your ministry. You got everything you need? Upstairs. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Okay, cool. Sorry, guys. All right. So the vision is, and I'm going to tell you guys the definition of the vision, okay? The vision is the view from the top of the mountain, okay? So again, what does God have us climbing? Does he have us climbing like a molehill and you just sort of take one step and you're on top of it and you're like, well, I didn't really know I went up anything. I don't know if you guys know what a molehill is. Am I speaking? Okay. Or does he have you hiking Mount Everest? Right. And he has different people hiking different things. Different people are willing to suffer in different amounts. And that's really the difference. Some people don't understand the vision God has for their life clearly enough to warrant more suffering. And that's, again, why we have lukewarm Christianity in the West. But to that end, if we want to hike Mount Everest, we have to have a clear vision. And the vision is the view from the top. And as a leader, you have to be able to communicate that to the people following you. So, for example, at ClickMill, the vision is that we're helping ministry leaders reach people more effectively. Because as we know, it does not work well. The church is not excelling in the West, it's degrading. More people are not going to church, and the church is terrible at marketing. And we want to help train them. We want to help give them services to get Jesus back into our culture, something to that effect. And we want to train ministry marketers who can do the same with their life, because it's going to be more important than ever, right? Something to that effect is the vision. Well, if you're passionate about Jesus and you see the degradation of the church going on around you, maybe we could get passionate about that. Some people, right? But what does that mean? Well, there's suffering involved. So you have to pitch the vision. And then once you have a clear vision, you align the action steps. And this is also true in our marketing strategy. Okay. So the vision of ClickMill is to help ministry leaders reach people more effectively. Well, how do we do that? Okay. Step one, and this is where it comes into marketing strategy from, basic strategy. First, we need website users. That is how we do it. There's no other way. We need to get people on the website. Once we get website users, we'll call it ebook downloads, right? Ebook, we need ebook downloads. We need lead magnet stuff, sign up for the course, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Step two is usually like a lead magnet download. Step three is free strategy call. Step four is client. So we'll just say payment, right? They become a client. That happens when they pay. That's when people consider themselves a client. And then what happens? So they are users of the website. The lowest next commitment is name, email, phone number, which is an ebook, some kind of free download. The next largest commitment on the small end is a free strategy call. Oh my goodness, I gotta put my wig on, and put some makeup on, and I got to get on a call and talk to some stranger on the internet. I mean, that's pretty high commitment. You know, most people, the vast majority of people aren't going to do that. We have a call. We talk about your needs, which we've talked about before, right? We want to assess needs, assess problems. We're asking them what's going on and what's working for them, what's not working for them. We make a diagnosis. We say, here's what I would do to fix the problem, and here's how it's worked for these people. And they go, great, I want to do that. And I want you to do it because I don't want to do it because I don't like marketing. And then we say, great, it costs this much. Here's the contract and here's the payment link. They pay. And then we are now able to do more sophisticated marketing than they would be able to do by themselves. Okay. And the vision is reached because our vision is to help ministry leaders reach people more effectively. That's great. Maybe for some ministries, it's training. And we've done that. We have 2 interns right now that came through 16 hours of training that a ministry paid for. And I just taught them all the marketing I could possibly fit into 16 hours. And I taught it to like 22 people in these calls. And, you know, that's awesome because now they've got a bunch of people who are more capable of marketing that organization, and it doesn't have to go through us. And we're not the bottleneck for all the growth of, you know, every single client. They have the skills, they can do it. So these align with the vision. And that is a super important part of this, Josh and Destiny, because with the church, we do all the things. We want to get growth. And so we just do more and more and more things. And this is why ministry leaders burn out. There's so many things that are going on. It's like, hey, we're a missions church. Then, okay, you're a missions church to outside the United States? Yeah. Then why do we have a surfing ministry? What does that have anything to do with the vision? Now I'm confused. You have a surfing ministry and they're missionary, like, but we also have a homeless outreach. Like, so we're missions, but we're homeless and we're surfers. Like, you know, and once we do that enough times, nobody knows what the vision really is. We're just saying things or saying the vision is one thing, but we don't actually do anything in alignment with it. Okay. So bringing it back here, the only ministries that should be in alignment, you notice I'm talking about church strategy as a whole, and I'm also talking about marketing strategy. Okay, so the marketing strategy are only the call to actions, right? The website should only be set up with the call to actions that lead directly to that vision. So other calls to action, like, you know, join our ministry potluck, like that should not be on the homepage. That has nothing to do with whatever it is that's the missions group, unless it's missions fundraising potluck, right? Excellent. That is in alignment with the vision. Do it. Join our marriage seminar. Not in line with the vision. Cut it out. Well, can't we keep it? Yeah. We are going to have a marriage seminar because if you're in this church, you're a missionary. Maybe you're a missionary locally. Maybe you're a missionary abroad and you're going to go over. We want all of you to experience that. But the mission field, life in general, and the mission field out of the country is extraordinarily stressful. And the last thing you need is a bunch of marriage issues going out there. You need to be on the same team with your spouse, and we're going to give you communication skills, whatever it is, right? Now it is in line with the vision. That makes perfect sense. And everybody knows what we're doing. And we're all working to the vision of being a missions church together. Okay, so this is a super powerful, and this is for your guys' lives in addition to strategic. This is just strategy, right? I just apply it to church. This is also something I learned from my mentor, and he goes that this thinking is the #1 most powerful decision-making process that you can possibly have. Okay, and so here's why. Especially, right, so the Matthew principle says, the more you have, the more will be given to you. That is straight from the Bible. Economists quote that all the time, and they call it the Matthew principle. It's what it's known as. The more you have, the more will be given to you. The wealthier you have, the more wealth you will have. Apparently, the more foster kids you have, the more you will be given. You know, like the more blessing you have, the more is going to be given. But as you're given more, you have to, as you're offered more, you have to be able to filter and accept the right stuff, right? I can't accept any foster kid into my house. I have young kids. I cannot accept teenagers that have major behavioral issues, because the likelihood that that will damage the progress of the young kids is very high, right? And right now the vision is to get these 4 kids into a good place, into a relationship with God, and to get them into a safe area. And if I have some kind of crazy element, like we had a 13-year-old for a couple of weeks before we got any of these kids, there's no way that would work. That would be mayhem. That would not go in the vision. So it's not an option. Anyway, to that end, one thing that Daniel says is, so you've got all of these options because you're a functional person. People see that you're functional and that you create good fruit in your life, and they want to give you more and more and more opportunities, and you have to know how to get rid of them. And he goes, the problem, and this is true, and I've seen this in my own life, not to the degree he has, but the more opportunities you get, the more decisions you have to make. How do I make? Well, I've got 1,000 opportunities. How do I make the decision on whether or not to take any opportunity? For example, Destiny Christian Academy. Pastor Chad called me and said, I want you to come on board as a teacher, and I want you to teach apologetics for the school, right? Which is awesome. That's the coolest thing ever. I'd love to talk about apologetics all day. But I looked at the vision and I said, like, I'm running 2 companies, and it's a 30-minute drive, and God's definitely called me to these businesses. And, I'm not going to feasibly be able to manage all of those things. So as cool as it is, it's not in line with what God's already put me to. And he's not calling me away from those things. And he's not calling me to be an employee. So it's not in vision. So it's not even I don't even have to make a decision. The decision is to stay in alignment with the vision that God, unless God changes the vision, then everything realigns. But so you got 1,000 opportunities, and 998 of them aren't opportunities because they're not in alignment with the vision. It's the fastest way to keep your life in control and to keep strategy and business strategy and ministry strategy in control. And this eliminates, when we talk about 80-20, right? This is like the 99-1. 99% of the opportunities that come your way are not in alignment with your vision. And if you take them, they will take you to some other area of life that you didn't want to go, and God's not calling you. So right off the bat, instead of considering, let's say, 100 possibilities, 100 opportunities, you're only considering 1. And as you excel at that 1, you're going to get more and more opportunities like that 1, and you will be able to select the best of the opportunities that align with your vision. But first, you have to weed out all of the ones that don't even align with the vision. Then, once you get multiple opportunities that align with the vision, you can start looking at 80-20 type of thing and say, which 20% of these opportunities that do align with the vision God has for my life or ministry, which 20% are going to create the most fruit? Does that make sense? So that does even come prior to the other kind of mental models and decision-making models that I've shared with you guys. And this is so powerful because it eliminates essentially everything. And Daniel, my mentor, Josh, I don't know if I've told you about him, his marketing firm's on track to do somewhere between 6 and 10 million this year. And he goes, I have so many opportunities. It's overwhelming. He's like, it's just crushing every day. Every time I open my email, there are so many ways to make money. He goes, it's unbelievable. People want me to do all kinds of things. And he goes, I could do it, but it's not where God's calling me. And I don't need to do that. And so he goes, when I just focus on the vision and I only consider opportunities that are in alignment with that, I can function because I don't have to spend my whole day filtering through 1,000 opportunities a day because I can't do it. So I focus on 2 opportunities a day, and I dump both of them usually, but when I do take one, it's going to be the right one. And that is how I craft the life that I have and that God wants me to have, and that is good for me and my family, right? So this is vision. And so to that end, when we set this up with ministries, we say, what's your vision? I want to help single moms have a healthy life and to have a healthy marriage if they get into a marriage. And that's what our church is all about. We're the single moms church in the inner city. We know our audience. It's African American. I've actually talked to a church who does this. African-American mothers who, are single mothers. They work, their kids are in daycare. They have at least one failed relationship, possibly a spouse, but most likely not. And here are the steps that they have to go through in order to have a healthy, whole family. They have to go through communication skills training. So if they ever get in a relationship, they can maintain that relationship and they can pick a person who's godly and communicates and loves in a healthy way. We need to go through parenting classes. We need to go through job skills training. We need to prepare these ladies for life. And at some point, presumably they'll remarry, and then they'll have a healthy and whole family. And he would like to provide those spouses through the church because he's training them. And so he's trying to mend the African-American community within that particular church. That is a legitimate strategy and a difficult one because you're teaching them how to live a whole life, but that is very legitimate. Anyway, to that end, that is a training on strategy, and you can do that for anything. You can do it for business, you can do it for your personal life, your relationship. If I want to, and I do, want to work on my relationship with my wife, I talk to her, I say, what's the vision? What are the steps that we can take to get there? And then we execute on those steps. We read books on communication, we talk, I share more things about myself that maybe I hadn't thought about before, or whatever it is, share something I'm struggling with, and we work through those things together, and she does it and I do it, and we get closer, right? We work the steps that we came up with that make sense. Do you guys have any questions on strategic thinking and orienting everything, marketing or otherwise, around a vision? And Destiny, I am aware you've seen this a lot, but you're still welcome to ask any questions you have. Oh my gosh. I'm supposed to be training with Roji right now. Oh my goodness. Oh man, I feel so bad. Can you try to reschedule with Roshi tomorrow, Destiny?
Does she normally not hop on the Zoom?
I don't think I gave her the Zoom link.
I did give her the Zoom link.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I'm glad to know that it's not my fault. She probably went to the Google Meet link.
Oh no.
That's
Okay, I'll reschedule with her.
Anyway, yeah, Josh and Destiny, any questions about strategic thinking? Because that is, that's what that is. Maybe I can end with this too. This is very abnormal, and this is not what I would say. Generally, a good rule is 3%. 3% of people are producers, 97% are consumers of that stuff. 3% of people are entrepreneurial, 97% are very, and not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but in regard to creating fruit, it is the minority that creates the majority of anything. In regard to people who think strategically, I would probably estimate there's 3% of people who think this way, if not less. And the majority don't think like this at all, Josh. What the majority do is they just have, they have no vision, right? So this is gone. We don't know where we're going. We're just sort of living life. And we've got options that present themselves to us in no uncertain order, right? And these are getting a little weird looking because all my formatting's going away, but let's just say, we got all these things over here. And, this guy is like, well, let's see here. I could buy this new Toyota Sienna, or I could buy this TV. Which one do I want to do? And he just says, well, either I'm going to spend $1,000 on this TV, or I'll save $1,000. And that is the extent to the decision making. But what he doesn't realize is that when he purchases the TV, he will then feel guilty if he doesn't watch the TV. The average American watches 4 hours of TV a day. So when you say after 1 year of owning that TV, he loses, I'm not going to do the math, let's call it 2,000 hours that he could have been self-educating. He could have been spending with his family, working towards some kind of a vision there. He could have been exercising, which admittedly I hate. Like he could have been doing anything with 2,000 hours, and instead he threw it away on TV. And now, how is his satisfaction in life? Well, it's not good. He's not doing well with his wife. He's not close with his kids, or not as much as he'd like. He's a little out of shape, right? He put on 10 pounds or 20 or 30, and he's a little more tired because, he's a little heavier and he's not as motivated. And now, because he's more tired, he justifies watching the TV more, and actually we'll get an Xbox to go with, And so those are called second, third, fourth order consequences, which is basically, if I take the first move in chess, most people when they play chess, they play one move out. And I'm not particularly good at chess, but chess is pure strategy. It's awesome. To that end, if I move this pawn, it'll die there. If I move this pawn, I'll take a piece over here. And that is as far out as they think. Well, they're not considering second order consequences. Well, if I move this pawn and I take that piece, then I'm in checkmate and I die. But if I move this pawn and I lose it, I put him in checkmate and he dies. So sometimes losing a piece is actually a good thing, but most people can't see that because they don't look far enough into the future. And that's very apparent when we talk about sacrificing, because when you sacrifice now, if you do it well and you do it wisely and smartly, there's a reward on the back end. And we know that biblically in heaven, but also in this life, right? And that's Proverbs. In this life, the wise man stores away an inheritance for his children's children, whatever. So it's often beneficial to reject the TV now for something that comes out here, but they don't have an out there in their mind. They don't have a framework in their mind for strategy. They're just living moment to moment and they've got nothing to reference. And so the decisions they make take them on, a curvy path through the wilderness where they end up nowhere useful. It's like getting in a car to go to the beach, except you don't have a endpoint in your GPS, so you're just taking random turns. That's how people actually run their lives, and that's how churches, bringing it back around to marketing, that is how churches run their churches. We don't have a vision. We don't know where God's taking us. We're going to reach everybody, and we're just going to take every ministry opportunity that comes along. Then, they've got 30 different ministries. We'll say 4 of them, 80-20, 4 of them produce the majority of the results, 80% of the results for those ministries. They don't know which 4 they are. They're hemorrhaging cash. The church is bloated. Nobody knows what the vision is. Nobody takes any action at church. And how do you fix that situation? You have to figure out what your strategy is and eliminate 99% of the things your church is doing to get on point and to get everybody clear. When you do that, you're going to lose a huge chunk of your audience because they're all fighting over whether you're a missions church or a homeless church or a foot washing church. Like, I don't know, whatever kind of, they're all fighting about it. They don't know. So as soon as you clarify your position, a bunch of people leave your church. And frankly, that's a good thing, because now we can at least be on the same page and start attracting the right people to our church, the people that are in our audience. Hey, we are here for single mothers. And if you don't have a part in supporting that, if you're not passionate about that, there are a bunch of great churches right down the street. And, we love you, and you're probably better aligned with their vision. And that's great, because you can go and support that. And we're more clear now. But you're going to lose a ton of people. And that's what pruning is, right? The plant grows out of control. You got to cut all the stuff off that's not supposed to be there. And then it grows under control the right way, the healthiest possible way. And then, so you put the strategy in place, you eliminate everything that doesn't align with the strategy. Then you go back and you eliminate everything that doesn't produce fruit in the direction of the strategy, which is the 80-20. And you just keep going back over until you're pared down to only the thing that's functional. and then you grow from there and you keep it on point there. And that is the type of suffering that's required to get ministries back on track. And most of the time, it's not something they're willing to do, but that's the truth of the matter, as best I understand it. Anyway, that's where most people are, irrespective of the training we did. That is how most people function and how most ministries function and businesses. Josh, was this new information? Do you feel like you've heard this before?
This was new,
New.
for sure.
Excellent. Okay. Helpful with marketing?
Yeah, it was good. It's pretty I feel like it was pretty timely, to be honest with you, because like my vision right now is to go into this marketing thing full head on. Like, ideally, it will replace my current 9 to 5, and I will go, whether it's working for somebody else or start my own thing. Ultimately, I would love to start my own digital marketing agency of some kind.
Cool.
But it's timely because, like you were saying earlier, if you have the vision, don't pull away from that and focus on other things that you can grab onto, because, like, one of my buddies who I work with right now, he's very, very hands-on and he's very handy, and he wants to start a handyman business type of deal. And me and him are like best friends, and we work together all the time because he's one of my coworkers at my current job. And he's wanting to like branch off and start his own business, and he really wants me to be a part of it. But I'm like, I don't know, man, I kind of want to do this thing over here where
Yeah, broadly speaking, Josh, for me, this is maybe just a little more personal. For me, growing up, I grew up super broke. Sometimes there wasn't food, sometimes the lights weren't on, sometimes the electricity, the cold water, it was all up in the air. We got evicted a lot. And so for me growing up, I struggled a lot with the fear of not having enough money. But I also knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and work with churches and do that. And there was, at one point, the pastor actually was offering, at that time, looked super good, a job opportunity to manage a facility for like $50,000 a year. It happened to be a CBD facility of all things that he had invested in, which is hilarious. It's made out of marijuana. Anyway, and that was a lot of money. And so my wife and I talked about it at the time. It wasn't on vision, and they said, you have to sign a 4-year contract to work with us, and you can't do anything else for 4 years. You're on. And I was like, man, I don't care how much, I don't want to be broke more than the next guy. But what I know is that if I am not true to myself and where God's calling me in my career, I will be miserable at that place. I'll have 50 grand a year. I won't be poor, and I'll be absolutely miserable. And, unfortunately, that is where most people are, at least as far as I can tell. Most people are in this place of sort of apathy with their day job, except they don't realize if they sacrifice for a couple years, they could get out, but that sacrifice is so painful, they can't see past it. But that's, again, poor strategy. They can't see that the sacrifice would end in something positive if they took enough shots, So, great. Yeah, I would encourage you, man. Don't give up on where you feel God's calling you. We're always looking for opportunity here. And, I can say for sure, if we get enough of that, we'll bring you in. To that end, I would tell you, if he wants to start a handyman, whatever, maybe tell him you'll set up the marketing for free. You'll help him set up his marketing, but you're not doing the handyman work. You'll just help him for the experience and then let him go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've briefly talked about the market, and like regardless if I go into business with him, I've already pretty much locked down, like I'll do all the marketing for him.
Cool. Yeah, there you go. And that's super cool. And maybe even teach him how to do it. That way he's not totally dependent on you when you get better opportunity, right? And you just do what I'm doing and just train him on this stuff. Yeah, so anyway, that is strategic thinking. I will end the recording and we can figure out what's next here.